is Charles Omanga. He is an advocate of a high court and an analyst. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
All right, so let's begin. I mean, you've been able to hear what Kenyans have to say. They're saying actually the structure should have even gone a bit lower than that. But generally speaking, what is your assessment of this new pay structure?
Well, thank you very much, Betty. I think I've listened to the reaction from the members of the public. But one thing that we should draw our attention to is that Salaries and Remuneration Commission is a constitutional commission. And if you look at our constitution in Article 10, it's talking about the responsibility of leadership, principles of leadership and governance. That is talking about participation of the people. You will recall that these people are members of parliament, even including the president. They are only exercising the sovereign power of the people through that democratic elections. Therefore, in any event that you want to talk about their salaries, they are not earning salaries and on behalf of themselves, but they are earning salaries because of the duty and the mandate of representation. Therefore, if you look at the principles of, that binds the salaries and remuneration, there are three key principles. One, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission must ensure that the total public compensation wage bill is physically sustainable. The second one is that they must ensure that the public service attract and retain skills. And the third principle is the principle of productivity. Therefore, if you are telling someone that you just want to wake up one morning and you are telling them that you look here, we have decided that from tomorrow or from next month, you will be going to earn 10,000. And I've listened very carefully to the comments of the chair of SRC, Madam Sarah Serem, saying that the reason that they don't want is people earning mileage allowances. I think the best important thing that they should have done is to ensure that the loopholes, the fake mileage claims, because even you, Betty, you have a responsibility allowance. Even me, I have a responsibility allowance, that because of this, I must get these extra allowances.
Right.
And the very center to this is element of public participation. Where did the public that gave these people mandate to represent them were involved? You realize that even by going by the recent decision of the High Court, they only centered it into lack of public participation.
All right. But
yes.
But this has been going on for quite some time. This conversation of SRC trying to tame the wage bill has been going on for some time. And you'll remember a few months ago, the president came out and said that, they'll make sure that, they take all measures really to cut down the wage bill. And this is just one of the ways that, they deem fit to do so. So it's a conversation that really has been going on for some time, just to ensure that, this wage bill is going down.
Betty, I must agree with you and even the president that there is need to reduce the wage bill. And I'm not saying that reducing salaries is wrong, but why don't we look the process behind it? You cannot basically simply say that by the mere fact the president had made some pronouncements that we are considering and we will take measures to ensure that public wage bill has gone down considerably. But one key thing that binds all state officers, state organs, public officers, whenever any of them interprets or applies the Constitution or make or implement public policy decision. This is a public policy decision. Where is the public? And the public participation is not merely getting into a workshop or a hall and telling people, look here, we have decided that the members of county assembly will from today henceforth earn 20 shillings. Then that is public participation. No. The only reason why I'm making some reservation with this move is that there should have been that exhaustive and thorough, consistent process of public engagement, whereby the public, because if one principle is to attract and retain skills, how will you retain a skill while there is no that motivation? Motivation at workplace or in any employment, gainful employment, is by remuneration or the benefit that are accorded. But when one decides that, Betty, today your salary is going to be 70,000 because we want to reduce the wage bill of the organization, but there must be other considerations. We have socioeconomic rights that the very Constitution provides, that you must be able to afford high standards of living, very reasonable.
All right.
That one comes with a cost. So all these things should have been factored in, which I believe they have not, because there had not been that exhaustive engagement of the people to at least tell them this is what we want. You hear even the members of the public are saying the salary should be even 70,000.
Yes.
It tells you these people were not part of this process. That is what I'm saying.
All right. We'll get back to you, Charles, but I want us to engage Irungu Kangata. He's joining me by way of phone. Thank you very much for joining us now. Being a member of parliament currently, what is your take on this move to cut the salaries for state officers by SRC?
Well, I do not have any problem with that proposal. The only issue is that I'm not so sure whether it goes big. Personally, I'm aware of several other big heads of various parastatus who earn more than even the president. We have several commissions, we have several statutory bodies, and the chairman and the directors of those entities, they do earn a lot of money. For example, we have maybe the Lands Commission, the National Lands Commission. How much does a commissioner earn in that commission? What about the IEPC? Well, I saw something to the effect that those allowances were reduced and their earnings were also reduced. But I am not so sure whether the commission went deep enough to ensure everyone who is earning a lot of money from the government, their earnings are reduced.
But isn't this a start, Irungu, isn't this a start at least to, this problem that we've been talking about the wage bill? You have a very small number of people accounting for almost half the GDP.
Yes, I agree. It makes all the sense. I agree with the philosophy and the rationale as explained by the president on various forums. Because it is true, it doesn't make sense for about 700,000 civil servants to be getting 52% of the entire monies generated by the economy. It's quite unfair. We have a lot of unemployed youth. We have a lot of people with no formal income. And they constitute a very large proportionate of Kenya. And if at all this is geared towards addressing that imbalance, I support. But on the other hand, I think we need to go deep enough and ensure everyone is covered.
All right, Irungu, there are critics and, a number of leaders also who've come out to say that they do not support, this cutting of the salaries because members of parliament, they have quite a number of responsibilities. When you go to the villages and the constituencies, they're expected to contribute to bursaries, to funerals, to so many other things. And therefore, that was not really considered in cutting down their salaries.
Yes, it is true. To me, that criticism is quite valid. To the extent, if I were a member of that commission, I would not keep a member of parliament in the same pedestal with, let's say, a commissioner in a certain commission. And for obvious reasons. If you find, let's say, even a CS that 900,000 he earns from the government, he takes the entire amount home. And but for a member of parliament, on average, maybe he takes home half of what he gets from the government. The rest goes to support the people. And we are here to establish what we call a welfare system. I would agree the best remedy would not be that. The best remedy would be to create what we call a welfare state, where you establish some funds, you establish a clear objective criteria, upon which poor people can access some support. And I think the Jubilee government is on the right track. It has made some good interventions and good proposals. But on the other hand, you have to look the reality as it is.
Yes.
That it is true members of parliament and other elected leaders use a lot of money to support the poor people amongst their constituencies. And therefore, if I wouldn't put them in the same pedestal with a commissioner, I would have slashed a higher percentage of the money of big government officers who are not elected as compared to members of parliament. It is true. Members of parliament and members of the county assembly, they use a lot of money to support poor people.
All right. Thank you very much, Irungu Kangata. They're speaking to us by way of phone. Charles, let me ask you about the 8 billion shillings. Do you think that's a good amount to return back to the economy?
I think, Betty, even if it were to be 1 billion that is returned to the public for other areas of development is just very important. But one thing that I want to borrow just from what Honorable Irungu Kangata said is that does this applies across the board?
Yes.
Because if you see in the parastatal, the discrimination, what criteria did they use that it is only members of parliament, the president, the MCAs, the county executives, and the deputy speakers of both houses of parliament? Because if we have to at least get serious about the issues of wage bill, this one must now extend even to the various parastatal heads. And Betty, you would ask yourself, if we really want to ensure that we have a lot of money for development, we must also just look beyond the salaries and the wage bill. Other areas, other loopholes where the public has been losing a lot of funds, billions of shillings through tax evasion, billions of shillings through corrupt deals and kickbacks.
Yes.
Because if we are to save 8 billion shillings annually, not monthly, annually.
Annually, yes.
And then in one contract, even for construction of a road, then you realize that the price was exaggerated by another extra 10 billion. It means now we are saving 8 billion through wage bill, but again we are losing tens and tens of billions through other ways. Therefore, universal application of these recommendations, and more importantly, ensuring that it is not only about the wage bill through salaries, but we are now ensure that how best can we continue. We must also admit that the government has made very tremendous progress in terms of ensuring that the burden that the people is having in terms of the high cost of our standards of living, at least they are trying to bridge that gap, which is highly recommended. But another thing is, let us abide by the principles of the Constitution. The Constitution is not that people will always criticize those decisions, but let us start on a very good footing. Let us be progressive in terms of how we comply with our provisions of our supreme law, which is the Constitution. I said and I agreed with the recommendations of SRC. But now, the fundamental principles of even public service talks again about participation of the people. Where did the people involve? Because there is, you will realize the majority of Kenyans still believe that even an MCA earning 144,000 is still in excess. It means if we could have had that constructive engagement to precede this policy recommendations or decisions, then we would have a society where we would not be challenging, because you realize Kenya have become an extremely litigious nation, which is not a bad thing anyway. But we must ensure to avoid that. Then let us comply with what the law requires and let these commissions abide by their very constitutional principles. Yes.
Interesting views there, and I'd like you to talk to us about, how public participation, would have been done. We don't know yet if it was done, but you'll be able to tell us that in a few moments. We'll come back to that, Charles. But for now, I want us to just link up with my colleague Francis Mtalaki, joining us from Mombasa. Francis,